Today's seminar is going to focus on transformations. The goal, or I can statements for this lesson are: I can graph translations, reflections, and rotations on a coordinate plane, and I can find the coordinates of a point after a translation, reflection, or a rotation on a coordinate plane. So at this time, if you could please pause the video, write this title in your notebook, as well as the two I can statements. Okay, so today's foldable is going to be looking at transformations on the coordinate plane, and specifically what we will be looking at are translations or slides, reflections, also known as flips, and rotations that are 90 degrees and 180 degrees. Also with 90 degrees, we'll be looking at clockwise and counterclockwise rotations. So let's go ahead and get started then right away with translations. So with translations, the biggest thing is that you're moving points left, right, up, and down, and it's a combination of those two different changes. So let's just jump into an example right away and go from there. So it says here in example 1, graph the translation of the quadrilateral ABCD, 5 units left. So we're going to underline what we know here, 5 units left and 3 units down. Write the coordinates of the original and new figure. So let's go ahead and write the coordinates of the original figure first. So I'll write A, B, C, and D. So point A looks like 2, 2, 5. B is 5, 4. And C is 5, negative 1. And D is 1, negative 2. Now what we'll need to do is figure out the coordinates of our new figure. And with these, what we do is we use prime. So if I do this, this means prime. So A prime, B prime, C prime, and D prime. And what this does is it distinguishes between the original image and the new image that we draw. So let's take a peek at what we need to do then. So it's telling us to go 5 units left, which means we're going to be moving in the negative direction on the x-axis. If it said right, we'd be moving towards the positive numbers. And it says 3 units down, so that's going to be on the y-axis. And if it said up, it would be going up towards the positives on the y. That's really all the difference there is there. So the first one says 2, 5. So we need to move 5 units to the left. And we'll do the numbers over here first and then plot the points, as that will be easier. So we're changing the x coordinate by 5 units and the y coordinate by 3 units. And they're both should be going down because they're both in the negative direction, in a sense. So 2, if I go 5 units down from there, I'm going to be at negative 3. 5, if I go 3 units down, I'm going to be at 2. So we're just subtracting here. That's all we're doing. Left means we're subtracting. Down means we're subtracting. If it were right, we'd be adding. If it was up, we'd be adding to the points. So this says 5 units left, so that's 5 minus 5. That gives me 0. 4 minus 3 is 1, so 0, 1 would be our next point. If I subtract 5 here, that's also going to be 0. Negative 1 minus 3 would be negative 4. So your integer operations, once again, are important here when working through these. And then last but not least, we have D here. 1 minus 5 would be negative 4. And negative 2 minus 3 would be negative 5. So these are our new points that we need to plot. So let's go ahead and do that. So negative 3 2 would give us our new A point, so A prime. It's going to write that on there. B would be 0, 1. So we'll write that in there as well. 0, negative 4 would be here. And then negative 4, negative 5. And if all went correctly, we should have something that's the exact same shape. Now I should use a ruler here, but for time's sake, we're just going to draw this in. This would be C prime and D prime, which I forgot to label. So what you're doing here is you're just shifting points either left and up, left and down, right and up, right and down. It just depends on how many spaces they want you to move or how many units they want you to move. It's pretty much the long and short of a translation. You're just moving something. So let's go ahead and look at number 2 then. And what this one says to is translate the figure 6 units right and 2 units up. So in this case, we're going to be adding to both of the points that we have, or all 3 of the points we have. It could be a combination of adding and subtracting. We just happen to have 2 problems here where it was subtracting from both and now adding to both. So it says write the coordinates of the original and translated figure. Let's do that first. A, B, C in this case, so just 3 points. A is negative 5, negative 4, it looks like. B is negative 2, 2. And C is negative 2, negative 4. And once again, we will now write our prime points, or the distinguishing way to tell between both figures. So what it says is 6 units right and 2 units up. So that means I'm going to add 6 to the x coordinates and add 2 to the y coordinates. So if I add 6 to negative 5, I should be at 1. If I add 2 to negative 4, I should be at negative 2. Hold on, I think that we need to change this. So 2 units up, yeah, that should be right. Negative 5 plus 6 would be 1, and then negative 4 plus 2 would give me negative 2. May have to check that when we look at it. Negative 2 plus 6 would be 4. And if we go 2 units up from there, we'd be at 4 also. And then C, if we add 6 to negative 2, we should be at 4. And if I add 2 to a negative 4, I should be at a negative 2. So let's make sure that these all worked out correctly. So point A would be 1, negative 2. So here would be my A prime. B would be 4, 4. And my other one here would be 4, negative 2. B prime and negative 2. And we should have the same shape and size after doing that, which it looks that way. And that would be our translation where both of them involved adding to the x and y. So that's all you're doing, is either adding or subtracting from the coordinates depending on the directions that they give you. It's important that you write down the points from the first figure as well as the second figure. Don't try to just change it by looking at it, you're bound to make a mistake. So write all this down. This is important. All right, so those are translations. Let's move on from there then. And we're going to look at reflections. So there's a couple different ways that we can look at reflections. And I will tell you both of those. Really, it says here, graph the reflection of the figure across the x-axis and then write the coordinates of the original and new figure. So we're going to be doing that again. So A, B, and C. So point A is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So negative 4, 5. And B would be 4, 4 it looks like. And C would be 2, 1. So let's go ahead and do our prime points. So A prime, B prime, C prime. Remember, this helps us distinguish between the two images that we have, the two figures. So A, and what it says here, when reflecting a figure over the x-axis, switch the sign of the y-coordinate, which is similar to just multiplying the y-coordinate by negative 1. So if it's positive, it changes to negative. If it's negative, it changes to positive. So we don't touch the x, that stays the same. So negative 4, negative 5. This would be 4, negative 4. And this would be 2, negative 1. So that's just changing the sign on the y-coordinate. So now that we have those points, we can now graph this. Negative 4, negative 5 would be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're down here is our A prime. Then we'd have 4, negative 4. This would be our B prime. And then we have 2, negative 1, which would be C prime. And we just would connect to those pictures and it should be the exact same thing, which it is. So we're good to go. Now, another quick way to think about doing a reflection is that whichever axis that you're flipping the figure over, in this case it's the x, each point should be equidistant from that from the axis when you're doing it. So as we see here, C is just 1 away from the x-axis, which means its reflection would be 1 away from that. Same thing with B, it's 4 away here, 4 away on the bottom, and for A it's 5 away from the x and 5 away from the x. So that's another quick way just to check to see that you did it correctly, but I am going to stress that you're using the points to do this time. So let's take a look at one that is flipped over the y-axis. A little bit different rules here. So it says graph the reflection of the figure over the y-axis. Write the coordinates of the original and new figure. So again, let's write A, B, C, and D. Point A is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Negative 6, 4, looks like to me. B would be negative 3, 4. C is negative 1, negative 2. And D is negative 4, negative 2. Then again, we need to have the points of our new figure. So A prime, B prime, C prime, and D prime. So for A, it says here, when reflecting a figure over the y-axis, switch the sign of the x-coordinate or multiply the x-coordinate by negative 1. Same thing. So it's a little bit different than flipping over the x because there we were switching the sign of the y, but when we're flipping over the y, we're switching the sign on the x. So all your y coordinates stay the same, your x's just change. So we'd have 6, 4. We would have 3, 4. We'd have 1, negative 2. And we'd have 4, negative 2. pretty straightforward there. And then again, like I said, each point should be equidistant from the y-axis. So if we move C, we know that is just one space away, and that should be at 1, -2, which it is. D prime should be 1, 2, 3, 4 away, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and that should be at 4, -2, which it is. B is 3 away, so we would move this 3 here, and A is 6 away, so we'd move that to here. And again, these coordinates all match up, but again, also they are equidistant from the point of reflection or the line of reflection. So if we draw this picture in, it should look exactly the same, just flipped, which it does, so we are good to go on that one. Just remember these rules when you're doing a reflection about which sign changes, also knowing that each point is equidistant from the line of reflection. With that being said, let's take a look at rotations, probably the most complex of any of the transformations that we have. And we also deal with rotations in 90 degrees that are both clockwise and counterclockwise, as well as rotations that are 180 degrees. So again, it says here, rotate the graph of the quadrilateral ABCD 90 degrees clockwise about the origin, and write the coordinates of the original and new figure. So again, A, B, C, and D. Point A is 0, 0, 4. B is 3, 3, 5. C is 3, 1. And D is at the origin of 0, 0. Again, we're going to have the points of the image. So A prime, B prime, C prime, and D prime. And what it says here for clockwise is switch the x and y coordinates, then multiply the y coordinate by -1. So you're switching them and then changing the sign of the y coordinate. So I should have 4 and 0, the sign doesn't change, so 4, 0 will be that one. This next one would be 5, and then switch the sign of the new y, which would be -3. For C prime, it would be 1, -3, because that's positive. We just switch the sign or multiply by -1. And then D is just 0, 0, because we switch the zeros, they're the same, we multiply by -1, it's still 0. So let's go ahead and plot these points then of our new figure. So over 4, up 0, over 4, up 0, almost went to the wrong spot. Remember x, y, A prime. Over 5, down -3, 1, 2, 3. And then I have 1, -3. And then I have the origin as well. Ooh, and I didn't label my points here, so this would be B prime, this would be C prime, and then D and D prime are in the same spot. Connect those, and you should have your new figure. It's important to note that you follow these rules, so switch the x and y coordinates, which we did, and then multiply the y coordinate by -1, or again, just switch the sign on it. So if it's positive, it turns negative. If it's negative, it turns positive. And then counterclockwise is a little bit different. We don't have an example of this, but here's the rule to follow. So switch the x and y coordinates, which is the same as doing clockwise, and then it says then multiply the x coordinate by -1. So the difference here is that instead of changing the y coordinate, you're changing the x coordinate. So make sure you're paying attention to when it's clockwise and counterclockwise. So that's with 90-degree rotation. Let's look at 180-degree rotation. So what it says here is triangle ABC has vertices 1, 0, 3, 3, and 5, 0. Rotate this triangle 180 degrees about the origin, write the coordinates of the original and new figure. So this one's kind of nice because it already gave us the coordinates, but let's go ahead and write them down. 1, 0, B is 3, 3, and C is 5, 0. And the rule here is switch the sign of the x and y coordinates. So it says multiply the x and y coordinates by -1. So that's all we're doing. Again, our A prime, our B prime, and our C prime to distinguish between each figure. So multiplying each by -1. So this first one would be -1, 0. This would be -3, -3. And this bottom one would be -5, 0. That's all there is to it, is multiplying each coordinate by a negative. So let's go ahead and plot those then in order to have our new figure. So A prime would be -1, 0, -3, -3, -3, -3. Again, I should be labeling these, so A prime, B prime, and then -5, 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. C prime. So there is our new figure after doing a 180 degree rotation about the origin. So it'll be important to know the rules for each type of these. Again, they're pretty straightforward as long as you're following these rules for clockwise, counterclockwise, as well as 90 and 180 degree rotations. So this was today's lesson on transformations. We again looked at translations, reflections, and rotations. So at this point now you should be able to go back to your entry slip and make your changes and turn that in as your exit slip. And just a quick review of our lesson and goals today. So we did look at transformations. Our two goals we were looking at is I can graph translations, reflections, and rotations on a coordinate plane, and I can find the coordinates of a point after a translation, reflection, or a rotation on a coordinate plane. Again, if you have any questions, please refer back to any of the examples in this video, or as always, you can ask me for help.